Our backs against the wall. It seems impossible, but there's nobody else I want by my side, standing with me to take this fight through the rise and fall. With our fearless hearts, we could be ours, and we could live for 1,000 years. We could be legends if we all go down. If our time is now, we could let everyone know we were here. Could be legends. We dream so colorful. Oh, we love so strong. The world is relentless, the city won't sleep. It hardens your soul, brings you to your knees. But we can face it all. With our fearless hearts, we could be ours, and we could live for 1,000 years. We could be legends if we all go down.
Spring Showcase. My name is Mark Wojcik. I'm a program director for the Onramp program at Boise State University. Onramp started just over a year ago, so this is our very first Spring Showcase, and I'll give you a little bit of background on the program to frame what it is that we're doing, and then we'll get started with our program right away. The Onramp program works with schools in need to provide educator professional development so that the teachers can create coding experiences for K through 12 students. As part of the Onramp program, educators integrate challenge-based learning along with Apple's Everyone Can Code and Everyone Can Create curriculum into their classrooms. Students apply what they learn by proposing apps to solve challenges in their own communities. So when we talk about Onramp, we say it's about community, creativity, and coding. And while the coding is important, the creativity and coding create that connection and meaning to the students' work. So with that background, I'm going to turn things over for an introduction and welcome message from Gordon Jones, Founding Dean of the College of Innovation and Design.
Hi, I'm Gordon Jones, Founding Dean of Boise State's College of Innovation and Design. I want to welcome you to the 2020 Onramp Spring Showcase. This is a time that's full of uncertainty, something I've never faced in my career, and I'm assuming you as well. And yet, uncertainty often is very disorienting to people. Yet I think of it as also opportunity. And I think about the special opportunity that is represented in Onramp. Quite honestly, we're creating access, we're creating the ability for skills to be developed and learning to occur, specifically around how technology can be opening up new frontiers, new opportunities, and frankly, help a state that's stepping into a more globally connected world. I can't thank you enough for the work to date in year one only around Onramp. I think about the work you, the educators, are doing, and I think about what we've already achieved in year one. It makes me so proud of this initiative. Already, we've had 400 students, K-12, go through coding experiences, working through grade-appropriate levels of learning. It really comes from the inspiration and the ingenuity of you, our educators. I also think about all the great work we do around professional development. 90 professional development credits for 13 faculty across 5 participating districts. This kind of work for our students, for you, our educators, helping you develop the skills and the opportunities, it comes with sponsors and participants. You at first as faculty and administrators from participating districts, bringing your energy and enthusiasm for this, I can't thank you enough. I also want to thank our sponsors. Without sponsors, this also would not be an opportunity. Boise State, bringing together a consortium both internally and externally, has been critical for this program. That includes the College of Innovation and Design, our collaborating College of Education, Extended Studies Department, and our very own GIM major led by Dr. Anthony Ellerston. But it also comes with partnering with College of Western Idaho, doing great work in the community college arena, helping lead in that arena. I think also about IDLA, creating expertise and opportunities for any of our K-12 districts across this state. And then not least of which, Apple, a global leader who saw in our state, who saw this consortium and said this is an opportunity to come together. World-class organization who's working nationally and yet saw in Idaho the opportunity that we represent. I want to thank Apple for their partnership. I want to thank our participating groups in the sponsorship group, and then also reiterate my thanks to you, the educators. I'm so looking forward to seeing the work that we get done this next year. But first, I'm very excited to learn about the great work that's happened this year. Again, thanks, and I look forward to hearing how today's event goes.
All right, next up, we've got 2 videos from Onramp educators, and these videos will give you an idea of what their experience was like throughout the year-long program.
Hi computer scientists, this is Samuel Stafford with Bora High School and the Boise Onramp community. I joined the Apple Onramp program in the summer of 2019. I was given little information as to what the program entailed other than I would attend a week-long professional development that involved learning Apple's programming language Swift and how to use Apple devices in the classroom. I did not expect to have my philosophy of education and pedagogical practices challenges and pushed so drastically. During the Summer Academy, we were given the opportunity to hear from 3 Boise community leaders. Each of these leaders had a challenge that they posed to the elementary, middle, and high school teachers in attendance. We were asked to come up with a prototype of an app to help solve their problem. I had never used Mac or programmed in Swift before that week. Given an opportunity to help solve real-world and potentially life-altering problems for someone else helped eliminate the roadblocks I would normally put in front of myself. I worked in a team with other teachers to come up with viable solutions to the problem using the tools we were presented with. My team and I came up with an app prototype that we are extremely proud of. The amount of pride and dedication I took in the project was facilitated by the Onramp program and charged me with bringing challenge-based learning back to my own classroom. I've used project-based learning in my classroom and understood the advantages of having students work in teams to solve large problems. Challenge-based learning opened my eyes to the power of agency in education. I wanted to be able to provide my students with an experience that would provide them with a sense of agency by giving them a tailored opportunity to impact their school and potentially their school culture. I wanted this experience to be relevant to their time at Bora and tied to a project that allows them to demonstrate their compassion and character. I mirrored my experience at the summer Onramp week with my students. I had my students hear from school support staff, then develop an app to assist them. I invited the head nurse, head custodian, and head food and nutrition specialist to come and speak to my students. I prompted the guests to tell my students what the largest headache was that they have at their job. This was particularly exciting for my students because they were able to ask clarification questions to the guests when they were done speaking. Once we heard from our guests, our project fell into several stages. The first stage was to identify the problem for each individual. The second was to determine supporting questions to help aid in solving problems. Third was create a survey with the supporting questions that students had their peers and their support staff fill out. Fourth was to develop programming skills that would enable them to ultimately create the app. Fifth was to develop prototype of their apps in Keynote. And sixth and finally, to develop their app. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, my students and my time was unfortunately cut short. Each group developed outstanding prototypes using Keynote, but were not provided enough time to implement their designs in Xcode. I still feel my students were provided with the heart of the project. They were able to put a face and a name to some of the support staff that are instrumental in keeping Bora High School running. They learned user interface and user experience design, along with fundamental programming knowledge, with genuine curiosity, compassion, and agency as the vehicle. Throughout the process of challenge-based learning, I have learned to engage my students in their school and community, and vice versa. Not only do students want to have an impact on their surroundings, but my colleagues, who do not spend their days in the classroom, do want to support students and improve student experience. I used to think that since I was the only computer science teacher in my school, I was working in isolation. And now, using challenge-based learning, I think the relationships and connections within my school are not only simple to facilitate, but necessary to foster.
I'm Stephanie Bauer from the Wilder School District, and I teach middle and high school computer science. When I was asked to join the Onramp initiative, I was ecstatic and ready to bring my knowledge of CBL to the table. I was jumping into a new position in computer science and knew that I would need all the support I could find. The week-long academy training this summer helped me know I wasn't alone and gave me the push of confidence I needed to bring the excitement of coding to my students. Our school district pushed for Everyone Can Create to be a staple for our students, and I was excited to share my passion with them. I was able to work through the music and photo books, but really sunk in deep with students through the Everyone Can Create drawing. It was a challenge to get teenagers as excited about their drawing and to get their minds wrapped around how to use the new techniques in their other classes, but I think they secretly appreciated not having to do regular schoolwork and could easily draw from their understanding in other concepts. I was able to use the coding interest to my middle school students and use the Q robots to give them the basics of block coding paired with other applications such as clips so they can have the background knowledge they need for Swift and future coding programs that may come up in their education. A group of female students also bonded together to try out the National Q Challenge that associated STEM activities and challenges into block coding. Along with the Everyone Can Create curriculum, I was anxious to use my new computer science position to help students really sink their heads into problems and initiatives around their community. Not only were students hands-on with Spheros to help with their understanding in multiple subject areas and standards, such as ELA poetry and math through bowling analytics. They were engaged in each activity and helped them understand the coding language as well as impact their diverse learning styles. My app design class used what they knew as students to help come up with solutions to problems in our school and designed app prototypes that they are hoping to continue to build as they get more familiar with coding concepts next year. We continued this method with a community challenge with our senior citizen population. Because of the unfortunate pandemic, my students were only able to create an app prototype and pitch their idea through Zoom. They enjoyed the process of being challenged with something that was a little outside their comfort zone. They understood that this problem was just minor in relation to what they could really accomplish in the future with their new skills. Participating in the Onramp initiative pushed me to new levels of being an educator. I had to really think outside a box that was pretty big given the personalized learning style in our small school district in Wilder. I learned that although I may be the only one teaching computer science, that I was not alone and that my students were able to combine many subjects to help cater their needs in coding, computer science. I am very excited to push some of my fellow coworkers to join the next cohort for the Onramp initiative. I used to think coding was just massive lines of words. Now I know that anyone and everyone can code.
Okay, now we're going to hear from some of our Onramp educators who were able to join us today. And for that part of the discussion, I'm going to hand off to Tara Feast, our K-12 Professional Development Director at Boise State. Tara.
Thank you, Mark. It is my pleasure to introduce 3 educators who participated in this year's Onramp program. Alex Phillips, a first grade teacher at Hawthorne Elementary, Michelle Pennell, who teaches computer applications at Lone Star Middle School, and Stephanie Bauer, the computer science instructor at Wilder Middle School and Wilder High School, and she's also an Apple Distinguished Educator. Welcome, educators. Let's first begin by talking about your first experiences with the training program. What was the biggest takeaway or most memorable aha moment for you? Alex? Oh, hang on just a second.
Hello.
There we go.
So the biggest takeaway for me was just that opportunity to get hands-on with my professional development. I've been to countless professional developments and I've never had the chance to experience it as if I was a student. So like the summer academy, we walked in the doors and I felt like the first time since being a student that, you know, I was walking through this as a student. So there was a challenge presented and I kind of just had that chance. Someone said, how are you going to solve this problem? What are you going to do? How can you use technology to solve that problem? And I loved the opportunity to dive in, work with the team, use technology to solve the problems. So the biggest takeaway for me was just that challenge-based learning, the importance of it, and getting to experience it as a student. I realized how important it is to get that experience to my students.
Excellent. Thank you. And Michelle, what was your biggest takeaway?
I would say my biggest takeaway or the most memorable moment that I had is the fact that I'm at a school that was not, that's not Apple. And so we have different devices. And so my big takeaway of everything was how to integrate different types of technology even into a school that doesn't provide those types of devices. And then being able to share those with my students as well by getting more one-on-one with the local colleges. So that was really nice because it was able to open up more doors and being able to connect our students with the community that they're probably going to be involved in through the local colleges around us and with the professional community members around the valley.
Excellent. Thank you. And Stephanie, what was your biggest moment during the training?
I have to go along with what Alex said. I've been to a lot of trainings and a lot of professional development that just is not relevant and that you don't really take away as much as you want. And walking in, Apple had set up the entire week catered to our different cohorts. So being high school, I was catered towards high school. So I knew exactly what was being thrown at me was going to be relevant to my students, and also the small size of people as well. And obviously having Mike Yakubowski there, knowing how much he is into coding and the background that he has, the takeaways from just having somebody that actually has been in the shoes that we were trying to step into really was fun, and made it more relevant, knowing that like I can do this. It wasn't just being thrown at us. We were actually, like Alex said, being able to be the student and do it and partake in it, because we don't want to throw stuff at our students without actually knowing and doing it ourselves. So kind of being the student, but also just being really well taken care of by Apple.
Great. So after that memorable training experience that you have had, can you tell us a little bit about your approach to integrating those curriculums so that everyone can code, everyone can create, and challenge-based learning, integrating that into your classroom? And talk a little bit about how your plan maybe changed over the year, and what was that catalyst that may have caused you to rethink your approach. So Stephanie, we'll start with you.
Well, our district went all hands in with the Everyone Can Create. So that was something that it was being done across our entire district. And I was fortunate enough to be a freshman advisor. And so I had my students every day, and we really dove into the Everyone Can Create and really pushed for those students to personalize it to the needs that they needed. So in the video that was shown, I actually had a student use a chapter of the Everyone Can Create to get some standards checked off in his science class, instead of just doing the regular work that was expected. He was able to put it into his view and how he understood it. And I really pushed that with my students, is thinking outside the box and thinking, how can I use this in my other classes? Because in Wilder, we're very personalized learning, so they have the ability to do that. And I tried to do that with my coding students as well. So I went all hands in thinking, oh, we're gonna do it this way. And then they proved me wrong and were like, we don't get it that way. So I let them kind of guide me, and I guided them back. So it was a back and forth year for us. So if I threw something at them and they had to tweak it a little bit to fit what they understood and how they could do it. And the biggest turnaround with that is with my app design students. When we went through app prototyping, we got to the actual Xcode and had a lot of, as you know, Tara, some issues with our Xcode, but we worked together, and I just found a different way to approach it to kind of get over the hump. And those students, I had a couple of them apply for a coding camp that I'm sure has been postponed. But they are just super excited to continue next year because they're all juniors and they want to get these apps coded, because they just realize how much more there is to it, and how much more there is left.
That sounds great. I'm excited to hear more about what your students are working on next year.
Thank you.
Alex, how did you approach integrating the curriculum with your first graders? I know that can sort of be a big switch between high school and first graders.
It sure was. I was hesitant at the start, so I started the school year off slower, and I started off by doing the Everyone Can Create. And once I realized how much they just were soaking it up and loving every minute, then I moved forward from the Everyone Can Create, and I just kind of presented a challenge-based learning opportunity with them. So I went from the Everyone Can Create into this challenge-based learning, and we took that, and then we actually did a little app prototype kind of in the middle of the year, and then after that kind of accumulated, then we were able to do the Everyone Can Code, and that was kind of coming up to the before the school closure. But the Everyone Can Code part, I was very scared to do with first graders. I have no knowledge of it myself, but I was blown away by the end of the school year so far, just with how they dove in. They were soaking up every minute, and they impressed me through the whole way. So that's kind of how I implemented it in first grade.
That sounds great. We had a really good time watching your first graders go through the process and enjoy the videos and things that they made. So once those are posted for everyone to see, we'll be able to see your first graders working. So, and Michelle, you had a particular challenge that you've mentioned with your needing to borrow devices, but how did you implement that with your classroom in the time frame that you had with the devices that you did have?
So there was a couple different challenges that I had. At the beginning of the school year, we were hacked, so we were really locked down on internet service. So for the first semester, all I was able to do was Everyone Can Code, because I found out, or actually I figured it out, that you can be in playgrounds without internet access. And so that was awesome. So I was able to bring in tablets still without having to connect to the internet, where the students did learn some coding. So that was, they had a really good experience. I even had my SPED students who come in with their parapros who actually taught their parapro about the iPad and how to do certain things. And so that was really neat for all of us to be able to experience. And then second semester, I was able to get internet access at that point, and that's where we really dove deep into the app development through Keynote. So I brought in community members from the McKinney-Vento program, the Boise Rescue Mission, and from Pet Haven, just a local cat shelter. And they came in and talked about the challenges that they faced to the students, and my students and I kind of came up with challenges for each one of them, and they created an app to help solve those challenges. It was very much student-led, so I was just a facilitator. I used a learning management system to house a lot of different materials, including videos, but it was really up to the students how their creativity came into play. I did show them an example that myself and a couple other middle school teachers created during our summer cohort session, just to give them like an idea. And at the very end it was a 5-week process where they worked on the app development while I also integrated in Common Sense Media. And so they learned how Common Sense Media relates to their app development process, much like just having the responsibility of a phone. You know, you download apps, but you need to know about privacy rights, and you need to know about a lot of other stuff. And so that's why I decided to integrate those materials into it. And at the very end, the kids did a showcase where I invited back the community members, I invited administrators, teachers, and as well as people from IDLA. I reached out to as many people as I could who would like to come in. But then the students got to present their app and their idea to the community members, and it was actually a really good experience. The students had a lot of fun with it. I definitely like to do it again, and even my students said, can we code this now? You know, like now that we have it developed, do we get to code it? Because they really want to go on to that next step. They really like that challenge and the idea of it's theirs. It's not me doing it, it's them doing it.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alex, tell us a little bit about a particular student or a group of students who you felt had a standout learning experience as a result of this project? I know that you had a few students who went above and beyond, but can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so actually one student kind of comes to my mind right now, and that student is someone who entered first grade and school more or less was pretty easy for him. He knew how to read, he knew how to write, but through the coding I took them through, he experienced I witnessed for the first time him coming up to something that he didn't know how to do. And so he, the first time, melted down and there were tears. I teach first grade, and there was anger and tears and there was the whole thing. And then that student actually was able to, well, first my class was so supportive with each other. They jumped in and like, oh, let me help you. And they helped each other. And so once he was able to get past that, he was actually one of my students who, when we created our app, he was the student who, we made this whole app about how to be kind and the different ways to be kind. And he wanted to add kindness games to our app. So he came up with this whole idea about how to make a game for this app. And he just like took it and rolled, and he created the game part. And then he was my little app, one of my app presenters. And he went around to the building, throughout the building. We took him into like the 6th grade class, and he's this tiny little first grader. And he stood up in front of the 6th graders and talked about his app and talked about the kindness game and how it's kind of like Sonic, but it's not. And he just was the most standout experience I can remember right now.
Thank you so much for sharing. Stephanie, did you have a group of students or a single student who felt strongly about the project?
I had an app design that I kind of threw together, not really knowing what to expect, just kind of going by Mac Yakubowski's recommendation. And I only had about 6 kids that were interested, but when I threw out the app prototype idea and gave them a challenge to find a problem in our school to create some kind of an app to help solve that problem, I had one student that was really passionate about the way that we serve lunches and the fact that we're 100% free and reduced. So everybody is capable of getting a lunch. But we have no way of tracking if students bring like cold lunches, or if with high schoolers, they would choose not to eat, their lunch. And so they're like, there's so much food that's going to waste because we can't get seconds. We're not allowed to go back and get more food. So all this food is going to waste. So let's help the cafeteria workers figure out a way to calculate, how many kids are actually going to eat lunch today, how many kids, enjoy the food. And so he actually went to our cafeteria worker and asked for her help. What do you need to track? What do you need to know? How do you need to get this information? And he designed a lunch counter app and really made it iPad accessible looking, because we all have iPads in our district, and made it for the elementary and for the middle school and high school. And he just was super passionate about it. He really wants to get deeper into it and make it even better. And so that's I'm trying to push him maybe to do something like that for his senior project next year when he can expand a little bit more with our Xcode as well.
That's great to hear that learning opportunity has potentially gone all the way into the next year for that student. Thank you for sharing that. Michelle, do you have a student who you would like to share about?
Let's see. I don't have any one student in particular. I just like to say that I'm really excited that I decided to do this project with my students, because it was a completely different way for them to learn than the traditional teacher-led. It was very directed towards the student. I was just a facilitator, monitoring, making sure that everything was going well. So it in the end, the whole process, the way it went, the students reflected more on themselves, and they were more okay with the grade that they got at the end, because they knew I got this for a reason. And so I think knowing that and then how it ended up at the end, many of them kind of thought back, I could have done a lot more. Or, oh, well, as a group, we could have done this instead. And so it was a really good reflection for not just the teacher, but for the students as well.
Great, thank you. So thinking about this process and how you approached both the training and the integration into your classroom and some of the outcomes that you've had with students and either being able to complete the program or kind of being in that stage where, because of the current situation, you now have maybe some fuel for next year. How did the program impact your learning and growth as an educator? Let's go to Stephanie with that question.
Because of the position that I'm in with computer science, my learning is going to continue actually starting this summer at Boise State with some computer science endorsement classes to kind of continue on just getting better for these kids. And I am really hoping that Apple continues to provide us with more broken down books. So they came out with the puzzles book, and that was something that was huge for my teaching, because I also taught 5th and 6th graders, and they need something a little bit more broken down. And so I know that my future is just going to kind of keep going, and I kind of hope that I can hang out a little bit with the cohort for next year, but I've definitely pushed some of my coworkers who are interested in coding and that kind of stuff to try to join for this next one.
Great. And Alex, how about you?
So when it comes to my personal growth, I think the biggest one was just that in my ability to realize how important this is with first grade. I'm responsible for teaching them how to read. They come in knowing letter sounds, and I got to get them to fluently reading 52 words in a minute, and same thing with math. So it's really easy has been easy for me to just dig my heels in. We're doing math and reading day in and day out. We got to get these kids where they need to be. So this kind of stuff was always intimidating to me because I felt like I had my priorities and they needed to stay that way. But through this experience, I saw them being able to take their new learned skills like reading and writing and use it for purposes. So a lot of them were seeing there's a reason why I'm learning this stuff and how important it is. So in my personal growth, I learned just how important it is to take the time and do this kind of stuff with first graders, and just, integrating them deep into it from a young age and how important that is.
Excellent. And Michelle, with your growth and learning as an educator, what have you taken away?
Oh gosh, I've actually taken a lot away. I'll tell you some key words are, and I wrote these down just so I didn't forget them, like innovation, community, creativity, design, coding, challenge. I mean, all of these key words really stand out within this program, and it really gets you thinking from a student perspective, which has been really nice. And so for me, my personal growth has been because I was actually put in the student position. And that helped me out so much, because then I could see maybe areas that I was lacking in my way of teaching, because to me it makes sense, but in a student position, I need to break it down a little more, or I need to involve the student. And so for me, that was big growth.
Great. So we have a question from our Twitch channel that is just a clarifying question that I'd like to share. The format for today's showcase is modified, obviously because our global situation. But the format for the showcases within schools varies by school. But after the completion of app prototypes or of results from a challenge-based learning experience, students are asked or encouraged to participate in something that's similar to a science fair style event where students pitch their or explain or present their app designs or their solutions to a challenge, and people are invited, the community is invited to come in and kind of hear those pitches and provide some feedback to the students. So the ultimate goal of that is to connect the student with the real learning that happens in facing a challenge and solving a challenge that's connected directly to the community. Our educators would have been presenting in a very similar style, would have been kind of a round room with tables and that science fair style where they would be presenting all of their learning. So with the number of educators we've truncated this program just to an hour. So the educators that you're hearing from now only represent a few of the educators that we have in the program. And we will have a link to some videos where all of the educators' videos will be presented, and you can see those things after through the Boise State CID Onramp site. So just to clarify, thank you for posting that question on our Twitch channel. So, so to get back, kind of to culminate our part of the conversation here, Alex, will you tell us a little bit about what you plan to either modify or adapt and add into your curriculum next year from this experience?
Yeah, so I am actually pretty happy with how this year flowed. I liked kind of dipping their toes in with Everyone Can Create. I loved that middle of the year to present a challenge and let them roll with that. And then I really liked how I kind of tied it together at the end with code. The only thing I think I would adapt moving forward was probably get them started earlier and not be so hesitant and not just say, oh, they're first graders, that's not going to work. Just dive in and know that it can work and do as much as I can as early as I can.
Right. Michelle?
I would definitely really like to do this again next year. I want to keep the format that I did for the app development process because I think that went really well. But I would like to add more coding into it and get further into that than what I was able to without internet access. So definitely a lot of plans for next year.
Good. And Stephanie?
I feel in the way that I need to kind of get going a little bit sooner, especially with my younger students that are involved in my classes. But I want to continue with those kids that have already started because the goal in our district and in my position is to kind of build this program from the ground. So just continuing with what we've started, but dive obviously a little deeper and get students really using that personalized learning aspect in our district to involve other subject areas as much as they can. So trying to make coding and computer science in our district a whole, kind of a holistic view with everything combined so kids can really dive really deep wherever they need. So continuing, but also continuing to grow.
Excellent. I really appreciate all of your thoughtful reflections on your experiences, and I appreciate the work that you've done to bring this program to your students and to those of us who maybe haven't been in the classroom with you. I know that for me personally, I have enjoyed watching your students and watching you navigate all of these new curriculum and bringing these things into your classroom. I think we are running ahead of schedule, which is unusual and wonderful. So actually what I'd like to do, if we're ready for it, I would like to introduce 3 members of the team from Apple who really helped make this opportunity possible. They've joined us today, and I would like to invite them to share their thoughts about the program and some feedback for our educators as well. So I'd like to introduce Dawn Henderson, Diane Gunther, and Cam Miller, and they are also on this call, and I will turn that over to them.
Awesome. Thank you, Tara. And Alex, Michelle, and Stephanie, I just want to say how incredibly fortunate your learners are to be able to see the incredible things that you're doing in the classroom, to bring to life the experiences that you had as a learner is so powerful. And also the videos that preceded, getting to see the students in action and to see the looks on their faces and how excited they are about all of this. So I really want to, first of all, start with a thank you from the team for the incredible work that you continue to do. And I'd also love to ask a question. This will be an off-the-cuff question for all of you. So not that the others weren't, they all were. But as we are in this new environment where we're learning from home and we're teaching from home, I'd love to get your thoughts on how might you, what's your best idea to bring these experiences to life virtually in the event that in the fall, that might be the reality for some. So how could you do or recreate these experiences knowing that part of what the magic is with all three of you is that social emotional connection? So how could you bring this to life? What's your idea for doing something virtual?
I think one thing you could do is just jump in with the challenge-based learning. So I think as much as I love to say that my being there made this all happen, I think if you present a challenge to a kid, they will roll with it. I think at that point when I was letting them just go, they were doing it on their own, more or less, really by themselves. So I think one thing you can do virtually is just present a challenge, and it could even be something to do with this global situation we're in and see where they can take it. So that's one way.
I think another way is you can still bring in outside community members into it with just video recording them and posting it on like a learning management system and allowing the student to come up with a challenge of their own. And you're going to have possibly 30 different challenges, but then it's specific to that student. And that's the whole point of challenge-based learning, is for the student to come up with the challenge. And so, and the creativity will come through it. You can also guide them by giving them rubrics on just like a few things, like trying to think of an example, like standardized based grading. So are they hitting those standards? Just so that way they're directed through the learning process. And you can do weekly check-ins. I mean, you could do a lot of things even virtually using this program. So.
And just to piggyback off of both of those, because they're both awesome ideas, is just combining students to reach out and use family members and use people in their community to kind of do a full circle using the social media aspect that we all know, especially my grade level students. That's kind of how they're like surviving, is through social media. And so getting other friends involved in challenges and, you know, using the experiences that they're going through, because we all know that there's so many different types of experiences happening with all the pandemic and everything. So really tying in their entire lives into either them creating a challenge or creating a challenge for them, but get their families involved so that the family knows how important all of this is, and encompass, you know, the reading, the writing, the math, everything. So the sky's the limit when you're teaching virtually, and when you have so many of these skills available and the students know and that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. All great answers and great ideas. So one more question. Just thinking about, each of you shared in your student stories that it was a team effort. Right? So they were working in a team to create these, and you worked as a team of teachers when you came up with your initial prototypes. How could you bring that team experience, ensuring that students could be able to work together virtually as well as they try to create those kinds of app solutions to your challenges?
I'll go first on this one. Well, I kind of already started doing that through Zoom, because we use Zoom, and being able to share the screen, and the students are collaborating and talking to each other, because there are a lot that are just hanging out at home. So being able to collaborate through the Apple iWorks as well. They can work on the same document, they can Zoom, they can really kind of just, it's all about that collaboration and just being that moderator and kind of stepping back, but also being there for that support.
Yeah, and also, again, there's different types of learning management systems that you can use where you can put groups of students together, whether it be through Teams or Zoom, or there's Adobe Connect. So there's lots of different platforms that you can use for teams of students to collaboratively work together on. As the teacher, you'll be in charge of each one of those groups, so you'll know how each student is if they're participating. Zoom allows you to actually record as well. So as an instructor, you can record every single time that they do a Zoom meeting, so that way you're seeing their thought process, and you can keep it for evidence, so, which is really big.
And I'll piggyback onto that. So I agree. I think these virtual meetings like this are a great opportunity, and I can add on to that and say I've been having whole class meetings through virtual meetings like this, and I'll tell you what, the technology piece does not bother them. They are still connecting, talking about the pajamas they're wearing, and they are not afraid to talk to a screen. It doesn't bother them. So I think that piece of like collaboration, if you set it up the right way, I think it can still happen virtually.
Fantastic. Thank you all again for sharing your journey with us. So powerful to see what you're doing. Really, really excited to see what's next.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, so Diane or Cam, would you like to?
I'll just add that congratulations to all of you for the work that you've done so far. I remember last summer when we presented you with this challenge at the beginning, and everybody had that look like, you want us to do what? And then came Tuesday, was even more panic set in, but then by Wednesday it was, wait, we've got this. So well done, and I think you guys are off and running, and you've done a fantastic job. And at this point, I think you finally see that the sky's the limit, and what you guys are doing is making a big impact, and you'll continue to do so.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Yeah, and I would just like to echo what Cam said. We just really appreciate you guys making the pivot to share your showcase with us virtually, especially with everybody scrambling to make the change to virtual learning in the middle of the year. And you guys have shared so many great things, and we're just so proud to partner with you and really are impressed with the progress that you've made so far. So we really look forward to continuing to work with you, and we can't wait to see where you take this program next school year.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Don and Diane and Cam, so much for your support of this program. We truly appreciate your leadership and the opportunities you've afforded educators in Idaho. So moving forward, I would like to acknowledge the 6 students that we brought in from Boise State's GIM program. The students offered technical support to educators throughout the Onramp program. And those students are Nikolai Casio, Chris Darren, Julian Doe, John Kaiser, Matt Marquardt, and Christine Todd. In addition to working with teachers and doing classroom visits and presentations, these students have also been working on a variety of materials, including interactive workbooks and videos that will go on to support next year's version of Onramp. I'm excited that I get to share the next video with you. because it is the first in a series of first in a series of videos that will end up highlighting each part of the Onramp program. So community, creativity, and coding. And it will highlight those elements of the program through interviews with Idahoans. So with that, I'd like to have you enjoy the next video.
My name is Sean Dahlman. I live here in Boise, Idaho. I am a musician and I make experimental videos.
You know, creating music is, it's the easy part. The hard part is taking the things that you've studied, taking the things you know, and trying to build emotional significance, nuance, while trying to not only make it pleasing to listen to, but at least for my own sake, intellectually satisfying too. When it comes to classical music, I'm very much interested in chamber orchestrations, so music that involves the piano with either like a singer or an instrument like a violin or a cello. But lately I've been more so doing experimental kind of like electronic works. I've been working with a lot of analog synthesizers, having electronic instruments, especially those VSTs, also known as like digital instruments. If anything, that just allowed music to reach a much wider audience. It allowed anyone with a computer to access interesting sounds and easy to use software. So anyone can really make good music nowadays. I can have a multi-track, hopefully sophisticated song ready by an afternoon and published on the internet. If anything, the game has changed to a more of an accessibility. Now anyone can do it.
That was a great video. I look forward to seeing more in the next year. As you said, it's going to be really interesting to see where we go next. Also, thanks for that great discussion with the teachers, Michelle, Alex, and Stephanie, as well as all the comments and questions from Don, Cam, and Diane. It really is a team effort, as I think you've heard about today. For some closing remarks, I'm going to turn it over now to Pete Reese, Associate Dean for Extended Studies.
Thank you, Mark. It's great to be here. I'm really pleased to be able to bring it up to the close here. I get the fun part of recognizing and thanking all of our partners for their work on this. And as we get started, I want to read a couple of the comments that are coming across from Twitch for you teachers. Lord Polani says, proud of these teachers. Thank you for sharing. Wish we had more teachers like you when we were kids. Gravette says, so cool to see these students click and be engaged with the increased agency of challenge-based learning. And This Pleases Gaga says, yeah, you teachers are so amazing. So I think that really sums up a lot of what we saw here, and really thankful that we got to be on the journey with you this year. As I get started, I want to thank the folks that put this program on tonight. This was a real pivot, as was mentioned earlier, from what was originally planned. You'll notice my background is where we're supposed to be in the Stuckel Sky Center on the beautiful Boise State campus. But I want to thank Tara Feast and Mark Wojcik for all the work that they've put on for this, and Dr. Chris Haskell for helping to run our Twitch channel this afternoon. I'd like to also thank, again, our Apple partners. Don, Cam, and Diane, thank you so much for being with us this evening and all the support you've provided. I would acknowledge something really important to all of us on our end here in Idaho. Your entire team, yourselves and everyone that you work with and has participated in each aspect of this program has just been top-notch. They've really modeled the way and helped show our teachers and ourselves a better way of doing things. And I think you've changed our lives, and hopefully we'll be continuing to change the lives of the students that we're working with. So thank you. You're doing really fantastic work. At this point, I want to recognize each of the teachers that has completed the project this year in the 2019-2020 Onramp program. From Boise schools, we have Alexandria Phillips, or Alex, who we've seen this evening, from Hawthorne Elementary School. Nancy Henderson from South Junior High School. Warren Hull from South Junior High School. And Sam Stafford from Bora High School. From the Wilder School District, we had Steve Alborn from Wilder Elementary School, Connor Morris from Wilder Elementary School, and Stephanie Bauer, of course, from Wilder Middle and High School. From the College of Western Idaho, we had Randy Guay and Sarah Strictly. From Summit Elementary School in Jerome, we had Andrew Pirin. From Lone Star Middle School in Nampa, we have Michelle Pannell. Thank you, Michelle. And from East Junior High School, also in Boise, Matthew Yoakum. I want to make sure that we also thank our other partners here. You've seen our team from Boise State, but we also had partners from the College of Western Idaho. And I want to thank Dr. Bert Glandon for his sponsorship and support, and our team members over there. And we also want to thank Charlyn from IDLA, Superintendent of Schools there, for her support and her team's support. We couldn't have done much of this without their help. As Cam mentioned, our teachers took a leap of faith this last year in June with somewhat little notice and not much clarity on what was going to be asked of them in terms of time and the commitment that was going to come forward to this. And I would say it has been an incredible pleasure to watch the evolution from day one until right now, and the showcases that we did get to see live. Fantastic work that you all did. And our vision for this program was to put technology and training into the hands of teachers so that you could amplify the impact by providing your students with greater clarity. You have far exceeded my expectations for that. You've done that while carrying on your own jobs and going through many other life challenges, including the COVID situation. So thank you all for your hard work. We've learned a ton from you, and we will look forward to carrying on with you. Thank you again. Mark?
Thanks, Pete. And I'll just echo a number of the things that you said, Pete. The thank you. None of this would have been possible without the partnership and collaboration that we've seen throughout, and including some of the adaptability we've had to go through here just to get transition to this. All of the educators have been through this. All of the partners have been through this. So in addition to community creativity and coding, we might have to add collaboration and I suppose adaptability to that, although we need one that starts with a C for that. So we'll work on that along with all the other things that we're looking forward to doing in the next year. Thanks to everyone for joining on Twitch. Thanks to all of our panelists and guests here on the Zoom call. And we look forward to seeing what you do in the coming years. And we look forward to working with our next cohort as Onramp Year 2 gets kicked off.